Before we jump in, a gentle reminder that the stories shared on this podcast include discussions about chronic illness, medical experiences, mental health, and other sensitive topics. While we share our own experiences and perspectives, this podcast should not be considered medical advice. If you have concerns about your health, please speak with a qualified healthcare professional. We believe these conversations matter, but we also know that they can be a lot. Please take what you need, leave what you don't, but most importantly, take care of yourself while listening.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Outside the Waiting Room. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Harriet.
Welcome back and thank you for tuning in again. Today we're going to be talking about work and working with a chronic illness and what that looks like in our experiences, because it's a huge part of our lives and it's quite a battle and a juggle with a chronic illness. So we just want to talk about
what our experiences have been and what we're doing now and how we got here, but also have a conversation around things that we always ask ourselves when you go for a job, like, do I tell my new boss? What do I tell them? Who do I tell at work? Do I feel comfortable? So all of the competing things that go through our minds when we're working. But before we get into that, our last episode, we were very hopeful that we would be back the following week. And that was definitely the plan. And maybe we jinxed it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Not touching wood is not as trusty as we like to think. So just thought we would quickly address the fact that maybe our brand is that we're not always consistent with our recordings, despite the intention to be weekly. I guess you couldn't get a more true reality of chronic illness by watching that not actually come to be. With that said, I wanted to check in with you, Livvy, and see how you're going. If anyone saw on socials, they would have seen that you've recently been in hospital. So how are you going?
Yes, it was quite the shock, really. We recorded last time and I felt like I was getting better. For anyone who hadn't tuned in, I ended up with a nasty bout of infections that then turned into pneumonia that was quite difficult to treat, and with a lot of antibiotics was still not clearing. But I thought I was feeling a lot better infection-wise. So we recorded, everything was feeling quite good. Then out of the blue, my lungs got really sore again and it was just really hard to breathe. And when you're chronically ill, you have that feeling that this is something that is not right within my body. So I was quickly sent to ED, which is our emergency department. And I ended up spending 4 nights in hospital on a lot of IV antibiotics, trying to get on top of things. That is how things spiraled quite quickly, this is the side of chronic illness that is quite alarming when things change so quickly. And I think you always know how sick you are to some extent, but it just becomes your normal. And then when you end up in a hospital setting, things escalate quite quickly and you become quite aware that actually this is quite dangerous. There's just an urgency, I guess, to try and get things back under control. And there's a lot of things that they have to roll out, which is quite traumatic. So I've had a week at home just in recovery. I feel better infection-wise. I feel like, I was going to say touch wood, but that didn't work last time. Let's not jinx it. I'm so scared to say that. I feel like my body is 90% antibiotics at this point, so surely nothing can survive. I'm just, really not feeling well lupus-wise, which is not surprising.
Yeah. People who have a chronic illness will understand that we all do literally everything in our power not to end up at hospital. So it's very brave of you. And I think people who have chronic illness will agree to be able to admit that and know that you're just going to have to let whatever happens happen. And it's going to be a little bit of a longer journey to get your lupus back under control.
My mum said to me, I know you're sick because I put up no fight to be admitted. Usually I'm like, can I manage at home or can we do this? But it was like, no, I need IV antibiotics and there's no other way around it.
Well, I'm pleased that you're home.
Yes.
I'm pleased that you're healing. With that said, I thought I'd ask a question which followed on from the last episode we recorded where we talked about energy and batteries. And I just thought it would be interesting to ask if you had a battery symbol on your body right now, what do you think you'd be sitting at?
Honestly, probably only about 20%.
That's fair.
I'm in that real deep fatigue where just everything feels really hard and everything's such an effort mentally and physically. I'm going to admit I am struggling right now, and I know that that's okay and it makes sense. It's just trying to sit within that and not push within that as well, because that's the biggest lesson for me at the moment, is just letting that be okay and not fighting it so much.
Yeah, pick your battles, right?
Exactly. And what about for you? How are things for you? Because I feel like it's all been about me.
Yeah, we know how much I don't like to admit things. I'm okay, to be fair. I'm probably sitting at around the 55-60% mark. More than anything, I'm just really, really exhausted at the moment. There's a lot going on. There's been a lot of change in my life recently, which has changed my routine, and it's hit my body a lot harder than I thought it would. And I'm starting to see those little signs of fatigue that come with it. But otherwise, health-wise, I'm as okay as I can at the moment. I'm just trying to keep on top of all the fun winter bugs that are going around. I definitely can feel something coming on, but we'll deal with that when it happens.
And as you said, there has been so much change in your life recently. And I think we underestimate how much that change just disrupts everything within our normal routine, and how much we kind of cling to that routine to keep things steady. When that shifts and that changes, we often find ourselves within this new battle of what life looks like. And I know for you recently, and it's kind of perfect with what we're talking about today, this new life with working, really, isn't it? And a big change there.
Yeah.
So that's why this feels really important to talk about for us, because it's something that's so prominent in our lives at the moment. Yeah.
It is. It is very prominent. So as we mentioned at the start of the episode today, is going to be talking about working, having a job, whatever form that is for you, and how that impacts or what that does to someone who also has to deal with having a chronic illness. So maybe a starting point is work-wise, what we're doing. Are we working full-time, part-time? So Livvy, what kind of work are you doing?
So little background. I studied social work. So I'm in a social service field. Worked a little bit once I had my degree as in a part-time capacity. Then my health played a huge role in not being able to continue that work. That's a huge story within itself. Then my husband and I, we decided we really wanted to start a family. So for me, that was either I continue to try and work, or we need to pull back and look at starting to start a family. That was a really hard decision. All I wanted was to become a mum, but knowing that I couldn't have it all, couldn't have my career that I'd worked so hard for, it was either one or the other. I did become pregnant, and I have been lucky enough to be at home with my daughter, and just recently got back 20 hours a week working from home for a social service agency. So that's not how I've pictured my career would turn
What did
out.
you picture it to be?
The dream was always to be able to work full-time in a social work job, just being able to be out in the community and just being able to have what I had worked so hard for with my degree, and what I saw my classmates being able to work and do, and just knowing that it was that physical side. I knew I could do the job, and I loved the job and I loved the work. It was just the physical side my body just couldn't do, and there was no way to push through that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of decisions that we end up making in our choices of career and where that takes us, unfortunately, does have to be weighed against our own health conditions and what's actually possible. That is a big part that people don't have to think about. They have the freedom to have a job that takes them in any direction that they wish, whether they study for it, whether they fall into it, and never have to consider the possibilities of maybe not being able to do that. Or yeah, so it sucks, right? You are such a kind, sweet human that social work is just something that you are amazing at. So that's a process of grief. Whole thing of this isn't fair that you have to go through, whilst also understanding that it's for the best.
Yeah.
That's not always easy.
Oh, exactly. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your history and what that looks like? And
So I ended up working in a bank, one of the banks here in New Zealand, and found myself in a myriad of different roles there, which was a really good stepping stone into opportunities that I would never have considered. I worked at this bank for 10 years before I decided that I wanted to explore some other options. And so the past 6-7 years, I've been working in a product role at different organizations looking at software and technology. That is genuinely somewhere I never thought I would end up, especially in technology. But it was also a lot of the decisions that I made and the roles that I took came from what I was able to do. As we were saying before, my routine has changed recently because prior to the last few months, I was working in a fully remote role, and I had been for quite some years in different companies. I'd never had to go into an office, and that protected me a lot. And it meant I didn't have to do the commute. I didn't have to deal with bugs. I didn't, all of that.
And because the bugs part is such a huge thing for you to be constantly so mindful of, isn't it?
Yeah, having an immune deficiency on top of everything else means that my susceptibility to catching things is so much higher than the average person. And in the last few months, I took a new role for an organization that I am so excited to be working for. But it does mean that I'm going into an office for the first time in about 6 years, which has meant that I have to get on a train, and I don't have the ability to sort of just take a moment to sit down and maybe close my eyes in my lunch break. There's been a lot of things that I've had to consider when I thought about my job and what I want to do. And a big thing for me is, for you, there came a point where you thought you wouldn't be able to work. And even this new job that you've got, which is incredible, has been a really big for you because you didn't think you would be able to work. And it's amazing. The difference to me, it wasn't like a weighing up on whether I could or couldn't. My issue was more how long can I be doing this job? When is it going to change that I might not be able to do this? In terms of money, it was really important for me to be independently financially stable because I was always preparing for the time that I'm not going to be able to work. I didn't know when it was going to be. That sits in your mind constantly. It's wild to think that people don't have to worry about that. Yeah, they might have it as a fleeting, oh my gosh, what if I couldn't work for a year or what it might be. But that's a fleeting thought opposed to like constant.
That is
This is something I
constant.
have to be prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of what I do and what you do. And so a good thing to talk about is what's hidden behind all of the stuff that happens when you do work. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And something that occurred to me was that work isn't just your 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, right? Your time commitment to that job is so much more than what you put in your day to day. And I know lots of people will say, well, same, because I take my work home with me. And okay, but that's a choice.
Yes.
That's a boundary issue, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of it. But what I was thinking was, if I, especially now that I'm back into commuting and going into an office, which I had done before, it got me thinking, now I'm having to make decisions on if I go into the office today instead of work from home and friends are meeting after work for drinks. Am I going to be able to do that? Probably not, because I don't have the energy. I'm going to have to go home because I've committed my energy into going to work for my paid job. But it unfortunately has an impact on outside of work experiences and choices because you've got to weigh that up on top of just work.
I think we underestimated that part. I definitely underestimated that juggle and that just that mental load that goes into before you've even sitting at your desk or what's gone into your day before you even reach that point. And then now I've got a full or a half day ahead of me where I've got to try and be onto it when your body has already been depleted so much before you've even started the day.
You're like 20% that you woke up with is already at 10% and you haven't even started your work day.
Exactly. I just laugh at our texts that have gone back and forwards to each other at the moment. 90% of it is us just being like, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. It's
I
just
don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. But in a way, it's been such a blessing that we've both entered this stage at the same time. We're both helping each other through this.
Yeah, it is such a juggle. And just on a standard day, the amount of things that are going through in your mind before getting to work. Then you add in things like hospital appointments. We don't have a choice and when those come, and you don't want to change that appointment because who knows when it's going to be rebooked for. So then you're now having to juggle your work day with appointments that you have to duck out to, and it's forcing you to tell people, at least your manager, that you have to take this time. And yes, everyone has appointments that come up, but when it's a very regular thing, it's a challenging conversation to have. You're not just thinking about what's going into your day. You're also thinking, okay, well, I've got that appointment coming up and I know that this thing's happening at work. So I'm going to have to try and make sure I can somehow, if I'm not comfortable, subtly ask people to move the meeting.
Your health and chronic illness feels like a full-time job without throwing anything else on top of it. And throw work on top of it. And for me, it's been that balance between motherhood as well. Found just motherhood and dealing with my lupus. I'm at capacity. And so now it's this juggle between I've got work on top of this, which I'm so, so thankful for. And I just adore my job. It's the greatest thing. But it's this new balance. And I'm very aware I can't put absolutely everything into my job to the point where I can't function on the weekends or I can't function afterwards, because I have a little one who still needs her mum. She needs her mum around, and I still want to be an active parent. So that balance, I'm still working what that limit is and what that looks like. But for me, my daughter is still my priority. And as amazing as a career is, I need to be very careful with that juggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely been harder for you as of late, because the timing of when you started your job and when you then started to get sick has just been the worst. Your energy is already way more depleted than it would normally be. As you say, your little girl is your priority and she should be your priority. Your priority is also your health. It's really hard when you've got these very big things that you have to prioritize. And don't get me wrong, people are prioritizing their children, but they're not putting that thought into their health as well. And yeah, when you first got back into the workforce recently, what did you tell your employer?
Yeah.
Did you have any concerns talking about your health?
Yeah. For me, the huge reason why I went for this job is because for the first time, my health was seen as something that was going to be beneficial. And my lived experience was something that was really going to enhance my ability to do my job. From the get-go, I was able to just be completely honest and just lay it on the line. It was something that was just seen as a real positive and not something that was going to hinder me. It was incredibly healing, not having to hide that part, and that part being okay, something that's really, really helped you and turned you into the person that you are today. So I've been able to be completely upfront and honest about my health. In the past, it has always been such a juggle between what do you share and what do you not. And for me, there are times when my health is very obvious if I am on crutches. So I haven't been able to hide it. And I don't think for me that would do me any justice. But I know for some people it's such a massive juggle between what do you share and what do you not. For me, going in to my new role is knowing that they know everything. And there's just this real acceptance is a funny word because people should be accepted no matter what.
Yeah.
But it's not always the case.
No.
So I'm incredibly lucky I can show up however I do on the day. The thing that has made it harder though is having had this infection and things turning the way that they did, because that has come with a lot of guilt, and I felt very unreliable because of my health, which I know I have no control over.
I've always felt when I get a job, I feel like I have to work harder to prove myself. And that's because of my own internal dialogue.
I'm the same. Yep.
Yeah, but it's just this idea that you don't want to be seen as the sick person.
No.
And even though you might have a really supportive team or manager, you still feel well, you like owe them something.
Yeah.
You don't want to take that time off, and you won't unless you really have to.
Yeah.
And you have been guilty of that in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But it's easy to do, right? You're like, no, I can do this. It's fine. It's all good. And it's because you want to be able to separate that sickness side of you, because you don't want it to be seen as a weakness. It's not a weakness.
No.
Society has made it feel like it is.
You still have that determination and that drive. That doesn't go away when you have a chronic illness. If anything, it becomes more amplified. So you're you're still just fighting this drive to be able to work. My dream is to be able to work. That doesn't go away. And that's something I've really struggled with. Just that want to be able to work is always still there, no matter what's been going on.
Yeah, definitely.
What about for you? How have you managed the like the telling people? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a journey, is what I would
Mm.
say. When I first started working full time, I was 18, 19, and it was very corporate. This is well before COVID. So working in the office was what you did. You didn't really say much. The tricky thing at the time was that I hadn't been diagnosed with CVID, but I was getting pneumonia constantly. I remember coming to work one day, and then within 2 hours, I was on oxygen in ED because pneumonia had just taken over. And I just didn't want to tell anyone. So I didn't say much for quite some time. I was also trying to distance myself from being sick because it was a bit of an identity issue for me at the time.
Definitely. And around that age as well. That's a hard age. Yeah.
Yeah, I did eventually tell one of my managers there. She was so supportive. I have been very, very lucky with the managers that I've had who have been really understanding and have never once judged or put expectations on me outside of the norm. And I'm very aware that that is not the case for everyone. That makes me really sad because your illness has no bearing on your ability to do your job. But it's not to say that those conversations come easily. Every time I've gone to start a new job has always been, okay, at what point do I tell people? And it wasn't until this recent job that I've been successful in that I was really upfront from the beginning. And the reason for that was because I'd been fully remote for such a period of time, I knew that there wasn't a possibility that I was going to be able to work 5 days a week in the office. I just knew since COVID, everyone was working from home. And then over time, it's become this thing where you have to go into the office a certain amount of days. I have such an issue with just by enabling that means that you're disadvantaging people who have chronic illnesses. When this job was advertised saying it was flexible working, there's a massive difference between flexible, hybrid, fully
Yes, all those
remote.
terms. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's such a variation, but everyone puts it under one framing. So when I had this first initial catch up, I was very upfront and said, you say flexible, what do you mean by that? Is it I have to be in certain amount of days a week, or is it flexible like within reason? What are we talking here? Because if you're telling me that I have to come in and I have to be in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I can't promise you that that's going to happen because I don't know what's going to happen. So I was like, I have a condition. I have to make choices around the energy that I have and how I want to spend that. And the way I'm weighing it up is, do I use that energy to commute in and then do a half-assed job because I'm
Yes.
so not well?
Yeah.
Or, would you rather I stay at home and do a good job at home because I haven't had to expend my energy? That conversation was so freeing because it just, you instantly know
Yeah.
by someone's reaction
Yeah.
how they're going to manage that conversation and what
Definitely.
their true feelings are. And I instantly knew this was the right choice. When I was offered the role, one of the things they said was they were so appreciative of the honesty because it gave them an opportunity to see it from another side and
I
see
love
how,
that. Yeah.
how business and company rules do negatively impact decisions that people have to make. If I'd gone in and they said, oh yeah, you do have to be here these days, there's no flexibility because people up here have said there's no flexibility, then I'm sorry that I'm out. I can't do it.
That's your, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really hard and you have to be really comfortable in how much you share. But if you want the right job for you, I think it's a really good test to be able to check whether or not these people are true to their word. But I also know that that doesn't come easy. And so my advice would be share what you feel comfortable sharing. If you know what your boundaries and your limits are, the only way you're going to be able to keep those in place when you start a new job is by being upfront about them from the beginning. If you don't want to have that pressure of, gosh, I can't do it, I'm so unwell, I'm not going to be able to manage today, but I have to because I have to be in the office, and you've not stipulated it from the start, you're only disadvantaging yourself. It's a selfish world.
It
You've
is.
got to
It
put
is.
yourself first.
Yeah. There's so much energy that goes into trying to hide things when,
Yes.
if you can just be honest. And this is a huge process. And this is something that we've both had to work through for years and years for us as well. we've had our conditions since we were so little. But I can imagine if you're newly diagnosed and then trying to navigate all this is another whole minefield in itself.
It is. And I say this like it's really easy to do. But there was a point when I was still expected to go into an office every day. I used to drive, and in my lunch break, I would quickly eat my lunch, and then I would spend the next 25 minutes asleep in my car. I'd go to the car, which was parked next door, and I would have a pile of clothes, and I would just put them on top of myself. So if anyone just happened to look in, it would just look like a pile of clothes, because I didn't want to tell anyone that I was struggling. So it's taken a really, really long time to build up that confidence. It's about finding people that you trust as well. So if you don't necessarily feel comfortable to start with your manager, find a colleague that you feel that you can talk to. You don't have to share everything.
No.
But it's just saying, hey, I've got these conditions, and sometimes things will be harder. Often if you find a good person at work, they're also willing to help and support you in those conversations with the people that you need to be having them with. I'd also encourage, if someone who is chronically ill tells you this, that you also offer them the support, showing that you care will take a lot of that stress off someone who is trying to grapple with whether or not they should tell their boss. Or
it's knowing as well that a lot of people are struggling, even if they're not struggling with chronic illnesses. They have things going on as well, so you're not the only one. I know it can often feel like you're the only one, but people have other things going on, or they're trying to juggle. So that's why those conversations are so, so important. Yeah. We're all struggling and we're all doing our best at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What really helps in these sorts of situations is someone who is hiring, as a manager, that reminder of just being human. People have things going on, whether they're a one-off or whether they're a reoccurring thing like a chronic illness. It's about asking, what do you need? How can I support you? Instead of just making assumptions, but also trusting that person. My managers have asked what I've needed, and my response is always, I know myself. I will always push to what I can do.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, but I will never go further than that. So you don't need to worry that I'm pushing too hard, but you do need to understand that if I'm sick and I'm not, it's not because I just want to day off. It is purely because I'm sick. And I'm not judging someone by the time spent at your desk, but based on what they deliver. I can guarantee people who are dealing with chronic illness, where they will fail will be time-based outcomes, but they will absolutely exceed and being able to deliver exactly what you want them to do.
Yes, exactly.
As you said earlier in this episode, is chronic illness is the full-time job that I never applied for. Somehow I've exceeded beyond measure. We've had a choice to apply for a job. I don't apply for this one. Here I am.
I would like to leave this one now, please.
Yeah. How do I hand in my resignation from being chronically ill? Thank you for the offer, but it's not paying what I would like, so therefore I'm out. What would your advice be if you had any to give to someone who's entering this, whether they're a manager starting a new job?
The thing that I wish I heard more is your worth is not defined within your career. I placed so much within, wanting this full-time job, and when I couldn't, and then things have had to change and look different, not because I haven't tried hard enough or I haven't given my all. It's because I'm working with a body that is not playing fair and my worth is not tied up within my career. Today's society, we place a lot of pressure and a lot of our worthiness within what we do and what our careers look like. So we really want to speak to the people who are in a place where they're not currently able to work and just let them know that that is okay. And just by doing your best with your chronic illness, and if that is all you can manage at the moment, that is okay. Stop looking at what everyone else can do, what they're able to do and what their careers look like, and just know that you are giving your best, no matter what that looks like. I spent so much of my time with that guilt, feeling not good enough, and it's really sad because you are doing your best. Your career might look different, but it doesn't make it any less meaningful. Whatever your career looks like or it doesn't look like, just know that that's okay and that your worth doesn't lie within your job.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think my biggest pet peeve is that question, and I'm very guilty of it myself, but that question of, So what do you do?
What do you do? Yeah, that's yeah, yeah. I've always really struggled with that. Yeah. Yeah.
That is where that idea of your career is your worth comes from, because that is the number 2 question that people ask when they first meet you. If we could change that narrative to be, what do you enjoy doing with
Yeah.
your time? Or what are you
Yes.
passionate about?
Yeah.
You learn so much more about someone that way.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. It's how you show up in the world and what you can give back to people and what you can give to yourself. It's not about what you do for a job or how much money you make, because at the end of the day, it's not going to matter.
No, and I think chronic illness really strips that back, and you have to face that reality that a lot of people, they don't until something happens or they get older and then their careers have to change. It also gives you so many skills and so many values and just the way that you look at life that a lot of people don't get, and they don't get those little gems.
Everyone has different battles. Our battle is chronic illness.
But us, it's always going to keep changing, and our careers are always going to look a little bit different, and we're going to do it in different ways, but there's still a lot of meaning within that. But it's not our everything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Health
Mm.
will always be a priority.
Mm.
What I wish people understood is it's understanding and meeting people with chronic illness where they need to be met, and not just assuming that they'll manage all of their stuff outside of the work hours, because that's not how it goes. If we could do that, if we could have our choice, and when we get sick, when we have to have appointments, when we have to have blood tests, my goodness, we would do that, but we can't. So yeah, we're not lazy. We're just trying to get by, and we want to be treated just as equally as the next person. And so we just would rather have those conversations and be open about those conversations. Companies really need to think about how they talk about flexible working and hybrid working, because that is just such a big thing. COVID proved that you could do your job remotely. The issue that companies have around needing people to be in the office is because their idea of what good looks like is showing up to work. But I don't know. I've seen people walk around offices for the whole day, do absolutely nothing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't seem right. The mandating shouldn't be a thing. It should be a conversation.
Mm, mm.
I think that's important. And trust goes a long way. You should be able to trust your people. We just want an equal playing field.
That's what it comes down to, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's probably so much more that we could tap
Mm.
into. Conscious that your battery is probably now at 5%. So I want to say thanks for listening,
Yeah, thank
joining us. We will be back our next episode, whenever that is. I can't remember what it was going to be about, so it'll be a surprise to everyone. I also just wanted to say that I really appreciated people who responded to the beautiful dinner that you were served in hospital. I think my favourite response was, "This is regurgitated school lunches."
Yeah, that was brilliant.
If you live in New Zealand, you will absolutely understand that reference. Quite a few people got that it was mac and cheese.
They did.
Yeah, when you first sent that to me, I genuinely thought it was cat's views.
I text you, are you feeling nauseous? Because if you're not, like, I won't send you my dinner, but if you're okay, do you want to try guess what this is?
I was never going to say no to that.
Yeah, it was macaroni cheese and mashed potato, cauliflower, and broccoli, I think, as well, and carrot. It was the weirdest mix.
Was it yum?
It wasn't terrible, but it was just...
It was hospital.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a good thing. I wasn't that hungry, so
Yeah.
I probably wasn't going to eat much anyway.
It's totally fair enough. All right. Well, you look after yourself.
Yeah,
We
thank
want you
you.
back here. And thank you, everyone, for sticking with us.
Listening in, yeah, and we will see you again soon.
See you soon.